Again, it's very good to have you all. And I'm sure all of you all know Irfan very well. He is the founder and managing director of Innovation Quotient, which is a design thinking startup that started 6 years ago. In Irfan's past as well, we've had him heading the innovation area at MAS. So he's a very profound, bringing a lot of information, a lot of experience to the table in terms of entrepreneurship and also business strategy. So with no further ado, let's introduce Irfan. Irfan. And also we would like to thank Irfan, especially for coming on board. I know as an entrepreneur during these days, he has a lot of work managing teams virtually. So thanks, Irfan, and over to you. We are looking forward to this.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jeremy, for that introduction. I must say this is new for me. Been on so many Zoom calls now. I think each of us are far more intimately familiar with each other's domestic surroundings right now, plus side of Zoom. Right, so Kumudu and I were talking about this some time ago, and we felt probably it's a good idea to start learning from each other and sharing our experiences. I think a lot of us are facing a common situation, but we also have individual battles that we face. I think more how do you call it, accentuated right now, given the situation we all face. So I just wanted to probably take about 20-25 minutes to talk about my take on what's happening right now and how I'm approaching it, how I'm approaching it with my team. I can't do it alone. I don't know if I'm right, but I hope to God I am. So let me just share my screen and we'll go from there. Right, so I hope you can see my screen. So I actually wanted to make today a lot more personal. I think if we are to learn from each other, we have to open up. We have to share experiences. That's one way we can get out of this. And something that's been top of mind for me right now is my partners and I run a small business. It's not very big. We have about 50 people in our business. What we do is very new. It's very unpredictable. We've kept the business really, really lean. We're coming on the back of already a very bad year. And then this happens. So right now, top of mind, I guess in any entrepreneur's mind is, what do I really do? Do I scale down? Do I decelerate? Or do I really run after all the other opportunities that I see? Because, if you're really bitten by the entrepreneur bug, every time you step out, every time that vegetable vendor comes home, or you see the chun pan passing by your house, you start connecting the dots in a very, very different way, and you also start seeing opportunities. So I think, like I said in my intro video earlier today, half of me wants to run away and hide under a stone, and the other half of me still wants to take the world on. So what I'm going to do right now is talk to you about it and probably help justify it to myself as well. So hence, accelerate or decelerate, and an entrepreneur's point of view. So those of you who are entrepreneurs or have tried something new, I'm sure are familiar with this. As entrepreneurs, we go through something called the trough of despair all the time, right? If you take 100 days, 100 consecutive days in our life, there's 99 days of going, oh my God, oh hell, and then there's one day that makes it all worth it. That one day right now is really, really hard to come by. But essentially, if you look at the journey that all of us go through, all of us start a business, start an idea, or commit to something generally because there's a lot of optimism around what we do, right? and it generally tends to be uninformed. We are betting on an idea which we believe is right. We don't really know if it's right or wrong. And then as we progress, we start to get a little more informed. We start seeing the gaps, and then every business, every idea, every venture will fall into this trough of despair. And it's a bit of a crisis where you're struggling to make meaning, and most often you do find that, and then your business starts picking up around informed optimism. But the problem, I think myself, a lot of fellow entrepreneurs, I can't call myself or my business a startup anymore. We've been in business for almost 5 years now, so it's time to grow up. But what really happens, this point between the crisis of meaning or trying to make sense and really climb out of that trough into being a proper grown-up scale business, is very tricky, right? Because it's where a lot of businesses actually crash and burn as well. So if you really look at, if I take the last 2 years, I've gone through this curve. Started with a lot of nothing but optimism. Quit my job, put all my savings, and my wife and I started this company. Slowly, reality started to bite. We faced many crises. We managed to stay away from crash and burn and slowly heading towards informed optimism. But then I think common sentiment amongst all entrepreneurs is you just can't seem to catch a break. We had the constitutional crisis towards the end of 2018, which slowed things down. We had the unfortunate event of the Easter attack around in April last year. And then we had the very unfortunate event of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, which is upon us right now. So if you really look at it in the last maybe 20 months, we've had three massive events that kind of, even if you take two steps forward, push you 3 steps back. So if you are an entrepreneur, being able to weather this storm has been critical, being able to see. So what this has led, in my mind, is it's created a very hazy picture. Really can't figure out where things are, where things should be, where to invest in, whether to grow the business or keep it small. So one decision that we took, this chart was actually first shared to me by my CTO, Tilina. I think he's on this call. He kept warning me about this trough of despair. So I think one thing that worked in our favor, and I'm just very openly sharing lessons here, is when we kind of sensed trouble coming, the first decision we took was not to scale or grow the business too fast, because if you grow it and try to scale it too fast, you also burn a lot more in terms of your human resources, your capital, and your runway. And when you tend to scale under an insignificant kind of economic situation, till you really know what's happening, you could end up managing what you can't manage. So in hindsight, it was a bet. In hindsight, I'm quite glad that we just decided to keep the business as is until we figure out what really is happening. I think there was talk of a global recession even before COVID, and I think what's happened right now is that's just been preponed. So it is an eventuality anyway. So the point I'm trying to establish is, this curve we will go through whether we are an entrepreneur, a startup, or an established company. And right now we are in a crisis. I think any crisis starts with a crisis in confidence, and that's where we are. And then moving from that crisis of confidence into kind of making meaning out of it, staying away from crash and burn, and then building towards optimism is the daily trudge of an entrepreneur. And I'm glad that a lot more of my corporate friends are going to face this now on a day-to-day basis. So essentially, my reality today, or my reality for the last 2 years, is going to be everybody's reality for the next 2 years at least. So welcome to our world. So, I mean, I don't want to spend time talking. I think all of us have enough reports going around on WhatsApp and email around which industries will grow, which industries will crumble, what really is happening, what's happened to the global economy. So, really don't want to regurgitate any of that. But I found this slide from McKinsey, a McKinsey report on the state of COVID, quite interesting. They've plotted 9 scenarios, and it's basically plotted on how effective disease control is, and how effective interventions are. And the boxes colored in blue are the probabilities for any country, based on mostly gut, but a lot of what I'm seeing working in supply chain and logistics as well now. I think a lot of it is going to be where, as is with any virus, it doesn't finish in one cycle. It will come across in a couple of cycles. So we are looking at a slow to long-term growth and a mutated world recovery. What that means is yet to be seen. So what I wanted to share with you all is just like all of you, I'm reading all the reports, talking to a lot of people, exchanging views. My opinion changes every day. But as an entrepreneur, I 2 weeks ago, I took a very conscious decision. I'm going to separate what I know versus what I don't know. And what I know is closer to home. The first thing that, something that I kind of told myself is, it's a virus. It accelerates to its advantage. So if the virus is to teach me something, and I am to really so go with what I know. So what do I know? I know I have a good team. I know I can do good work. I know I can build good product. I know I am globally and regionally competitive in what I do, as is with all Sri Lankans. And I know there's a market out there if I know how to look for it. So based on what I know, if I take the view that I will also be like a virus, look at how I can mutate, how I can change, how I can adapt. Perhaps I too, or my business and my partners and my team could also accelerate to our advantage. So to answer the question, of how I started, do I decelerate or accelerate? I think because we took a conscious view to keep things steady, and because we are smaller and agile, I felt probably now is the time to really look at how to accelerate and where to accelerate, and kind of behave like a virus. So just like every business, when we saw trouble coming 2 to 3 weeks, trouble came in December, but it really hit Sri Lanka about 3 weeks ago. Thank God, not at the Royal Union. I think we're seeing a lot of letters of companies cutting costs, cutting salaries, preserving cash. And I don't want to judge. What they're doing. But that, I was reading an interesting article that Hilmi Kader had spoken about. You can take the chop and see approach, or you can take the whole value creation approach. And I think as an entrepreneur, what we're constantly used to is turbulence. So as an organization, the question my partners, founders, and I asked ourselves is, do we take the traditional outlook of wait and see? So if we wait and see, let's look at who we're going to let go, what costs we're going to cut, how we relook at our pay scales, or do we take a very different view to it, and really look at a different framework? So don't get me wrong, we had to relook at some of our costs, and we had to relook at how we will survive. We're a service-based company. Right now, I don't see beyond 3 months of runway for my own organization, but that doesn't scare me. My partners and I decided not to take a wait-and-see approach, because if we wait and see, we will always be waiting, but I don't think we'll see anything. So we decided to take frame our actions into 3 areas. And again, influenced by what we see out there, listening to a lot of people, talking to a lot of people, and we separated it. We separated it into 3 phases. Right? So right now we are in a phase where we don't really understand what's happening. So let's try to understand. Then will come a phase where there's going to be reform across the board in the economy, in government policy, with our clients, with the industry, with technology. So what do we do then? And then will come a time, perhaps 6 months down the line, where it will be almost an open canvas for us to reimagine new possibilities. So how are we going to be ready for that? I'll just walk you through some of the steps we took. So in understanding, instead of waiting and seeing, it was a lot about our resolve and our resilience. So we really looked at what kind of scenario planning can we do based on the scenario planning, what initiatives, what our resource power is going to be, what the drawdown on our resources are going to be, how much cash is still king, so how much cash we were going to need, how we were going to collect. We relooked at our portfolio of services, identified which ones to prioritize. The founder, we've been working from home, but we've been spending at least 4 to 6 hours a day talking to each other, really running different scenarios in the organization, backed with numbers and really looking at what to do. Might sound obvious to you, but if you haven't tried it, try it. It just adds a lot more clarity in terms of telling you, where your business really stands and what you should be doing to move forward. Beyond just scenario planning and numbers, a big part of the whole understanding in terms of resolve was also around people and culture, and I'll talk about that as the next slide. So we think we're going to take about a month to finish what we're doing in this bit, but then we're also going to move into, okay, what do we reform? So we try to understand what new opportunities are going to present itself to us with various industries reforming. Consumer demand is changing, so that's creating new opportunities. The legislature will change, policy will change, technology will change, and that's great for entrepreneurs like us, because we should ideally be nimble enough and fast enough to capture those. But again, our reform is starting internally. We're looking at how do we continue this work from home, and also have an office space. Can that be a lot more efficient? We've tabled ideas around, can we convert our office now into a co-working space where we bring all our partners in, and ideas around cycling that time in office, just to create a lot more collaboration. We've looked at reforming our own policies, our own cash management, our own revenue management. Looked at multiple areas around what we can reform. Reimagine is a lot of fun, and I think that's going to be a time that's going to be upon us in about 6 months. And just to give you an example, we built products, and one such product we had built was a video product. And we were seeing a lot of opportunity in the e-commerce space, and a specific opportunity in e-commerce, especially in a market that goes down, is classifieds, right? Is the buying and selling of second-hand items. So we're looking at how we can leverage our existing product suite into a new market and a new use case. And we are not alone on this. We can see there's a popular room booking app that is now an online market. Lots of people are reimagining new futures, and that's a very positive trait in entrepreneurs that you'll see across the board. If there is an opportunity, you reimagine, you reconnect, and you move on. So these are the 3 steps that we are taking, essentially to level set and to get ready for what's coming. Instead of watching and seeing and cutting and chopping. So just to continue that, in terms of focus, as an entrepreneur, really looking at navigating through the next. I think we are in this for the next 6 months, right? So we looked at what do we increase and what do we decrease. So internally, for us, people come first. We're looking at we're looking at their safety, we're looking at their job security. We haven't tabled any conversations around job cuts or headcount cut. We're looking at how we cross this bridge together. And the whole team is working on a plan. It's about customers, and it's a lot less about sales these days. On the external view of the organization, we are really looking at cash still being king. But more than cash, what are we really doing to create business value for our customers? How are we helping them connect dots in new ways and create new value propositions and new opportunities for themselves? Right. So that's essentially how we see the world and what we plan to do. So you may ask me, what are you doing to accelerate, or how do you accelerate? I'm just going to share with you 5 points that we're working on and that we think will form the cornerstone of our accelerate plan. So firstly, I think you got to focus on the fundamental shifts. There's a lot of trends. I mean, anybody would want to start an e-commerce business today. Anybody would want to start a last mile business today, given the sheer demand, right? But what we're seeing today is temporary. So that would probably just be a trend. But what would really be a fundamental shift? Would a fundamental shift be work from home? Would a fundamental shift be more online marketplaces? Would a fundamental shift be, for the next 18 months, travel is going to decrease? So how do we reuse airline capacity? Do we convert it to freight, for example? So being able to sift through temporary trends and understand fundamental shifts will really be able to show you what long-term and what solid opportunities would be out there for the taking. I have 20 minutes, so I'm rushing through this. Jerry, I hope I'm okay on time. The second thing while focusing on shifts is to reduce friction. So if you really look at it today, if all of us have tried to order online, the challenge is we wake up at 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, try to order online, the site keeps crashing. So if you are targeting a fundamental shift, come up with ways to reduce the friction in the value proposition that you launch. The lesser friction you create, the greater chance for your proposition to be adapted, provided that you target a fundamental shift. My company is a data science company, so it would be odd for me to say don't believe in big data, but right now I would say don't. We were talking about this today. If you try to measure public sentiment today, it won't be accurate, because 70% of public sentiment today is influenced by social media, and all we see on social media is negative news. If we were to understand e-commerce data today, it won't be accurate. If we were to understand logistics data today, it won't be accurate, because data tends to be annualized to a quarter or bi-quarter or a year. But what we can do is start using granular data, whereas we set our scenarios, we specify specific measurement points. For example, like credit card data, how can we compare credit card data pre-crisis and post-crisis? Which sectors are growing versus which sectors are declining? How is average basket value changing? How is the basket mix changing? Would be good data to look at for an example. So getting down into granular data, setting up proper granular data frameworks is far more important than believing all the data that you see out there. The other thing is, in terms of figuring out an equilibrium, the whole demand-supply equilibrium is changing. And then figuring out where you stand in that in terms of creating value is also important. I'll be happy to explain this through a question. I'm just for the sake of time. And lastly, more than anything, as an entrepreneur and as startup people, we're used to pivoting. Right now, if you take the large airlines, they're grounded, they can't fly passengers, they're removing their seats and converting into cargo. They're pivoting. So if billion-dollar airlines can do that, any business can. So again, if you're looking to accelerate and continue to create value, stay in business and weather this storm, the ability to pivot is essential. How you do that would be a conversation to have. So that's my take. I don't discount that it's tough times. I think it's here for a while, but I also see it as an opportunity if we decide to take it. Because tough times last, but tough times don't last. Tough people do. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so that's it. I'm open for questions.
Parallel industry, do you think the speed solution will still matter when it comes to...
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
No worries. No worries. I'll repeat that. So Shehan has a question. He says, in terms of the apparel industry,
Yeah.
do you think speed solution will really matter in the future? And he's talking about supply chain lead time cycles.
Yeah, the apparel industry I think is really interesting place to be. I feel for the industry it's probably had about 50 to 60% of it kind of temporarily on hold. I think speed has a space or has an area to play, but I think the industry needs to think beyond speed models. And I think the biggest opportunity for the industry right now is to remove seasonality in fashion. As an industry, I worked in it. So when I say we, even when I used to work on it, we used to structure ourselves around 4 seasons, run complicated supply chains around catering to each season. But what you're going to see now is, consumer habits are going to change. It's going to go more into protective gear, for example, anti-mic, more functional wear. And what that's going to do is remove seasonality in clothing, apart from obviously catering to the elements. But I think the larger opportunity is going to be in removing seasonality, because if you eliminate seasonality, you can create a lot more standardization in supply chain and manufacturing. So I think that's one way out.
Brilliant. Thanks, Irfan. The next question that we have is from Hasita. He'd like to ask, with the slowdown of passenger airline connectivity, how will this impact the supply chain of short delivery cycles? Impact of cost escalation?
I think it's the short delivery cycle is impacted for the next maybe 2 quarters. But again, like I said, if you take short delivery cycles, the capacity that caters to it is air freight. And air freight is hindered because passenger flights can't be operated and aircraft are shut down. But if you work with the airlines to convert that passenger capacity into cargo capacity, that's an immediate solution. But the other opportunity, and I'm giving away a lot of my trade secrets, but that's all right. The other opportunity is that, remember I spoke about equilibrium, right? So what's happening right now is, traditionally we have 2 strong trade lanes, which is the US trade lane and the European trade lane. But what's going to happen is the Asian trade lane is also going to take off. And the Asian trade lane doesn't really need air freight to start running, quick solution or speed solutions. It's easily connected through rail and through road. So right now what's going to happen with supply chain and logistics is there's going to be a recalibration of elements and a recalibration of mode and media, which again is a huge opportunity.
Thank you, Irfan. Just a quick reminder to anyone else who has questions, you can always go to slido.com and type in hashtag what's next #1, and you can enter your question there if you have any questions. We can encourage more. All right, Irfan, we have another question from Ajit. His question is, how would one balance your cash when you are in a situation where the whole world is affected and the stakeholders are not willing to invest? And he's talking especially for larger organizations. Sorry, but
I'm sorry. Who asked that question, Jeremy? Ajit? Is it?
Ajit, yes.
Ajit, I must say I have worked in large organizations but I have not managed cash. But as an entrepreneur, I'm in the same situation. Investors don't want to put in; they don't have the money to put in. And the work you do is, let's say, takes a while to collect the money. So cash is always an issue. What we do around, and it's never easy. There's always a shortfall and a chasing behind it. But I think if you're organized around your cash flow. So on a side note, we've managed to run my company on zero financing and zero credit for the last 5 years. And the way we do that is very clear around the projects we do, the value we create, what the cash is, and then how we manage our costs around it. So I think when you're smaller, you're able to do that. Unfortunately, I must be honest, I don't have a view to around how a large organization would do it.
Thank you, Irfan. We have a question from Dusty. So his question is, he's asking about companies like John Keel's that have their supermarket, bank, logistics arm, and their tech company in-house. But why can't they get it together, he's saying. So he's talking about conglomerates and why can't they get things together. So
yeah, I think most large organizations are run as... Yeah, sorry, finish.
No, go ahead, Irfan.
Okay, so the question was a large organization like John Keel's has supermarkets, logistics, and yeah. So I think most organizations, although have different sectors, these sectors operate as different silos, and each silo is its own castle, its own king and subjects, right? So it's a culture thing. It's connecting the dots and making it work is not as easy as it sounds. Right, because so just to add to that, systems are disparate, workflows are disparate, culture is disparate, vision is disparate. So unless you align all of those, you can't connect the dots.
Thank you, Irfan. So another question, I think you touched on this when you spoke to us in your presentation. This is another question from Hasita. He would like to know, what trends do you think will emerge from this new order after the first wave of the virus? And how do small and medium scale enterprise change to capture opportunities in these new trends?
Wow, that's okay. So there's a lot of research out there. I'll just speak from the top of my mind. So what I think a couple of industries will really kind of find themselves on the positive side of this, right? But whatever to happen, we need to watch it for the next 6 months. I think the first industry to really benefit from all of this would be health and wellness. So health, not just in terms of hospitals and hospitalization, but general health products like nutraceuticals, natural remedies, and wellness. That whole space is gonna see a massive resurgence. And I think my personal base, long time, pharma is going to find strict competition from alternative medicine, because there's a lot of research going into that. I think e-commerce is going to take off. I think last mile and logistics around e-commerce is going to take off. We've known this for a while. I think another industry that's really going to take off is this whole industry around this whole industry around information systems. So if you look at it, a lot of people will drive digital transformation, but you will find that a lot of systems need to be connected, and they all come from different backgrounds and have different features. And there's clearly going to be an opportunity for a guy in the middle to connect all of this and create one big information system or information network. So I think that's going to be big. I think agriculture is going to be sexy again, given all of this. I also think industries like education is going to see a shift to probably what we're seeing right now. A lot of online, a lot of collaborative learning. So there's lots of opportunities out there. I think maybe Jeremy, that's a follow-up session. There's tons out there.
True, you're right. All right, thank you, Irfan. We have a question from Angelo, and he's asking again about the apparel industry, and he'd like to know whether if you feel that environmentally sustainable solutions will have more scope in the long term for apparel.
Absolutely. I think with what's going to happen is a couple of things, right? Supply chain is going to get reconfigured. The whole RM raw material supply chain is also going to get reconfigured. Consumer knowledge and consumer psyche is going to change into obviously consuming more sustainable products. Right? So I think sustainable fabric, sustainable garments, eco-friendly is going to be, it's also going to see a massive boom.
Thanks, Irfan. We have a couple more, so brace yourself. A few more though. One is from Isuru, who's one of our students also. He's talking about debt. So he's saying debt eats up lots of revenue as financing costs. And he references the SoftLogic group as well, which has about 50 billion in debts. So how will organizations manage debt in this crisis situation?
Well, I think managing debt has always been the perennial task of the CFO in an organization. I think debt is good. You can't grow without debt. It's just the ratio of debt and how you manage your debt that's important. So I would say don't take the view that debt is bad. It's good, you need it, but it's how you use it that really matters, and how careful you are around it. I think right now is probably a good time to get into debt. Because if you're careful enough, there's enough reform coming around, the government is getting involved, central bank is getting involved, there's legislation being passed around providing debt to organizations to help them sustain and secure themselves and move forward. So if you have a clear view to your debt, you want to use the debt and how you're going to grow or sustain yourself using that debt, but also have a clear view to how you will take back. I think it's something good that you should consider.
All right. Thanks, Irfan. We have another question. We have a question from Dilanjan. He would like to know what advice would you give a startup which has interdisciplinary creative, which is an interdisciplinary creative agency that is 70% relying on creative production, such as photography and videography.
Yeah, I can see that down here. So yeah, I think it's tough days for agencies because the first thing brands do is cut costs, right, and cut advertising budgets. If you're an interdisciplinary creative agency, depending on creative productions, I think first thing I would do is look at how I will productize my service. For example, I can give you, I'm just being very simplistic here, happy to talk further on this. I can give you 5 videos for X amount a month as long if you commit for 3 months, right? So you're productizing it, you're bringing people in, you're bringing your clients into a retainer, you're offering a steady, simple, predictable, reliable service they also know what they're going to get. I think clients are also out. It's not that they're cutting, they're looking for a deal. So if I was an integrated creative agency, I'll look at how I productize what I do. Can I productize my creative services, my research services, my branding services, put customers on retainers, create extra value, show how 1 rupee probably does the work of 3 rupees. And it's always good to focus on organic growth because acquiring customers today in this scenario is going to be far more costly than it would normally be. So productizing even a service would be a good way to go.
All right. Thank you, Irfan. We have another question from Jeff. He asks, how can digital empower mom and pop businesses and small timers beyond the shopping cart and delivery?
So I'm going to share an idea here, right? I think digital can really empower mom and pop businesses. I have nothing against the supermarkets, but I think it's a bit of a mafia. And I think the one thing that we've all realized is the beauty of the chunpan lorry or the little lorry that comes home now carrying various stuff that we can buy, right? I think there's a huge opportunity to scale that model. So imagine if you put your mom and pop store on a platform, give them a POS, give them an ERP, give them visibility to stocks, make them visible to the neighborhood, connect that with a delivery service and a mobile wallet. You've got a completely different ecosystem there. If anybody does this, please pay me a royalty. Jeff, over to you. Can you hear me, Jeremy?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. So we have one more question that we'll take, which is from Savit, and he's talking about what businesses the government should really support after the pandemic. So how which areas would be considered as essential, and which areas would the government invest in terms of bringing capital and helping out?
Hi, Savit. I think that's a great question. I think, again, I would break it down, right, as short-term, medium, and more medium-term. I think right now we need to protect the industries that bring in foreign income, right? So what do we do to protect apparel? What do we do to protect the ICT industry, tea, rubber, agriculture? I think that's critical. I think secondly, it's around industries that provide infrastructure and ground services. So what do we do to increase our capacity in healthcare, in transport, in logistics, in information services? And then beyond that, I think the immediate priority of the government should be SMEs, and launching a strong, sustainable SME program, because SMEs are the real engines of any economy. So providing funding to SMEs, giving them infrastructure services, helping them go to market, creating SMEs the government needs to focus on.
All right. Thanks, Irfan. So yeah, that's all we have for today. Time we have left. Irfan, thank you very, very much for coming in today. I know I've been asking you for all sorts of things over the couple of days, and I know that you're really busy, having to, again, manage everything at IQ and everything that you need to do. So thanks so much for coming in and sitting in with us and speaking to us. Also, I just want to elaborate that this webinar is basically the first one of a series of webinars that we'll be doing basically every Thursday. So, and it is in collaboration with Innovation Quotient, IQ, Papercube Research, and also Thivra, who is our digital partner. So with that, I'd like to end today's webinar, and thank you very much for all of you for coming in and participating and asking all these very insightful questions. Yes, we hope to see you next week with us again. And yeah, over and out.